You know what frustrates me with my fellow conservatives? What frustrates me with my fellow conservatives that they do not understand is every problem in this country is two problems. It is the problem and it is the press. And they don't get it. The press is one of the biggest problems we have in the country. You know, the news, and I'm not being reactionary. I'm always warning people about being reactionary. Just because the left says something doesn't mean the opposite is true. Just because the left says something doesn't mean they don't have a point. Sometimes they, even a stop clock is right twice a day. But the problem is the way the press plays the story and what they want out of the story makes you so angry and it's so dishonest, and it's always on one side. It's part of this elitist Western suicide group. It's the weirdest suicide in the world because they don't kill themselves, they kill you, and then they sit around drinking Chardonnay saying, wow, I'm sure glad we committed suicide. Now you're dead. That's all they want to do is destroy Western civilization, and it's hard not to be reactionary, but it's part of the problem, and it's why I appreciate Trump more than sometimes he may personally deserve. The news right now, the number of Americans seeking Social Security disability, which is a huge problem under Obama, it's plunging, right? Why? Because of the Trump economy. If you have an adult child living at home, he may be moving out because more kids are getting out of their house. That was a huge problem under Obama. Why? Trump economy. The number of housing starts is at an 11-year high. Lots and lots of good news. And we'll get back to some of that good news. But that is what we're not covering because of the press. And this whole thing, listen, it's bad at the border. Do not get me wrong. I do not want to see children crying and separated from their parents at the border. But you know what? There's lots of children crying for lots of reasons. Children are crying in Chicago and Baltimore and St. Louis because Democrat policies have left them open to violence in poor neighborhoods. Nobody's covering that. So it all depends on which crying children you cover, right? And that is the thing. We have to learn not to be bullied by the press. And so my feeling is, look, Trump is trying to enforce the law at the border to discourage people from coming over. I think that's the right thing to do. This idea, and this is the other thing. This show is now covering the news one day before it happens. Didn't I tell you that the Republicans are going to put forward some decent solutions, and the Democrats are going to say they will not do it? Chuck Schumer essentially told his people, do not sign on to anything that the Republicans try to do, because we want to keep the focus. This was a quote from him, apparently. I don't think this was recorded, but he said, we want to keep the focus on Trump. And then he showed up with this pin thing, right? Because we all know in America, the way laws are made, it says in the Constitution, the president shall use his pen to write laws, because we do not want the legislature. He's offended. He's offended that lawmakers should be taxed with making laws. This is clearly a job for the legislature. So here he is shaking his pen at the press.
There are so many obstacles to legislation, and when the president can do it with his own pen, it makes no sense. Ryan, the president signing it, attaching it to things that are unacceptable. Legislation is not the way to go here when it's so easy for the president to sign it. It's an excuse. The president can change it with his pen. Ryan, Trump, unacceptable additions has bogged down every piece of immigration legislation we have done. It's an excuse.
Leadership, please don't throw your pen at me without disputing the fact that this could be quicker if the president were to just sign something. If we're having this conversation in 3 weeks or 6 weeks, when is there a point that Democrats would be willing to work with Republicans and say, okay, yes, let's do some narrow piece of legislation here?
Let's hope we never get to that. Let's hope the president does the right thing and solves the problem, which he can do. That's the simple, easiest, and most likely way this will happen. How many times has immigration legislation passed in this Congress? How many times? Zero. It's an excuse by our Republican colleagues who feel the heat, don't want to attack the president, even though they know legislation will take a very long time and is unlikely to happen. And the flick of a president's pen could solve this problem tomorrow.
Chuck Schumer begging Donald Trump to become king of America. How often do you see that? Trump has MSNBC reading the Bible, and now he has Chuck Schumer begging him to be king. What is the magic of this man? He just gets these guys. Please be king. We can't pass laws. We're just lawmakers. How can we make laws? We can't do it. Unbelievable. And as extra cover, Dianne Feinstein has written the Keep Families Together Act. You know, with a name like that, it's lousy. So you read the press, like read Vox, right? Vox is this liberal, outlet. Every now and again, they quote me, and I have to say they quote me accurately, at least they did last time. So Vox is saying, oh, this is wonderful. All it does is it reverses Trump's policy. Not true. This is what it says. This is Dianne, and every Democrat has now signed on to this, okay? Every single Democrat for cover, right? So when they go to their red states, they can say, oh, yeah, we tried to do this, but the Republicans wouldn't help us. This is what it says. It says an agent or officer of a designated agency shall be prohibited from removing a child from his or her parent or legal guardian at or near the port of entry or within 100 miles of the border of the United States. Know how many people live within 100 miles of the border of the United States? 200 million, 2/3. It's almost the entire area of the country. And when it says a designated agency, that's any federal agency. That is any agency, right? FBI kicks down the door. There's Al Capone with his kid under one arm and his machine gun under the other, rat-tat-tatting away and killing, dropping. They can't take his kid away. If they're 100 miles from the border, if it's in Chicago, they cannot take the kid away. So it's just an absolute cover-up. So all this hysteria, right? And again, it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that they should just leave the children at the border. I'm saying the legislature should deal with this by legislating, by making laws, right? I'm saying they should deal with it. But all of this, the hysteria, because they choose which crying babies to cover, right? I mean, let's just watch. We have to stop for a minute and watch Rachel Maddow trying to deal with this. She can deal with babies being ripped out of their mother's wombs. She can deal with babies being shot on their stoops in Chicago under Rahm Emanuel. She can deal with babies being separated from their crack-addicted mothers in St. Louis and Baltimore. Everywhere where Democrats rule, she can deal with that. But she can't deal with those Trump babies. Look at this.
This has just come out from the Associated Press. This is incredible. Trump administration officials have been sending babies and other young children. Oh, hold on. To at least 3. Can we put up the graphic of this? Thank you. Do we have it? No. 3 tender age shelters in South Texas. Lawyers and medical providers. I think I'm going to have to hand this off.
And just remember, every time Rachel Maddow cries, Barack Obama does this. Because it's all to cover up what's being exposed. This is part of the good news, is Barack Obama is being exposed. And that's why this is happening right now. That's why this hysteria is taking place right now. So